Okay, so right now there are two AI agents fighting for a spot on your computer. One is Claude Cowork, and the other is Microsoft Copilot. And here's the thing, they both promise the exact same thing, an AI that doesn't just chat with you, but that actually does things. Send the email, build the report, cleans up files. So on the surface, this looks like a boring tie. Two safe big company tools, right? But it's not a tie because the real fight was never about which one is smarter. It's about who owns the ground these agents stand on. So let's get into it. All right, so here is our game plan. First, I'm going to show you what each of these tools actually is right now. Then we are going to get into the two differences that actually matter. And trust me, it's not the stuff everyone is talking about online. After that, we're going to talk about who each one is really for. And finally, we're going to talk about where this whole thing is headed so you can stay ahead of it. Let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny, and I'm a serial founder now on my fourth startup. I'm a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech and AI. Listen, I've been in this industry for a long time, so I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. And my goal for today's video, and really all my videos, is to help you make sense of this ever-evolving landscape of AI. Let's get started with our first step. So let's actually start with Cowork. So Cowork is Anthropic's desktop AI agent. It operates inside the Claude desktop app. And the premise is remarkably straightforward. You direct it to a folder on your computer, you give it a high-level objective in plain language, and it just performs the work. That's the entire interface. No terminal, no API keys, no configuration. You simply describe what you want. And here's a defining characteristic of Cowork. It improvises. You don't specify how the task should be done. You specify what you actually want. And the agent will determine the steps itself. So you might say, for example, take these unstructured receipts and produce a clean spreadsheet. And it will read the files, make the decisions, and generate the result. It runs within a sandbox virtual environment, which really provides a layer of isolation between the agent and the rest of your system, which is in fact a great thing and really promotes a safer approach to using AI. Here are the typical use cases that Anthropic will usually cite on their website. For example, reorganizing a messy downloads folder or consolidating scattered notes into a single research document. Basically one-off tasks where the method is kind of irrelevant to you. You just need it done. And that's the essential point about Cowork. It is an improviser. Each time you ask, it works the problem out fresh. That makes it exceptional for exploratory one-off individual work items. But hold that thought, because this is exactly where the tension begins. Now, Microsoft Copilot. And by the way, if your mental model of Copilot is still the autocomplete pane inside Microsoft Word, it's worth updating that mental model because the product has changed substantially. Copilot now offers computer-using agents that are generally available. They operate websites and desktop applications through the interface itself, much as a person would. And recently at Microsoft Build, the company introduced its flagship, a persistent, always-on agent called Scout that works across Teams, Outlook, OneDrive, and the broader desktop. One detail, though, that is worth pausing on, Scout is built on OpenClaw, the open source project I've covered extensively in my other videos. It's interesting because the independent challenger has now become the infrastructure inside Microsoft's flagship. So Copilot's strategy is really the inverse of Cowork. The model is good enough. The advantage, though, is ubiquity, because it is already embedded in the applications you cannot realistically abandon. Here's the first distinction between the two that actually matters. And I made this case in some of my other videos. The model race is effectively converging. Capabilities are clustering at the top and quickly, which means the competition is no longer about the intelligence itself. It's actually about distribution. And this is, of course, where Microsoft holds an advantage Anthropic simply cannot purchase. Microsoft owns Windows, Office, Teams, Outlook, and your organization's entire identity layer. At their recent conference, they actually demonstrated a desktop in which File Explorer, Outlook, and Teams each carried their own embedded agent. Now, consider the implication there. The agent that wins is not the one you remember to open. It's the one already operating inside the tools you cannot leave. That is a genuine moat, and not the sophistication of the model, but proximity to where the work already happened. Second distinction, though, is one that almost no one is really discussing, and that is the pricing model. So Cowork runs on a flat subscription. You pay a fixed monthly fee and you let it work. Copilot is taking a different path. As of June 1st, Microsoft moved its agent workloads onto a consumption model. So credits billed each time an agent executes a task. A credit is roughly a cent, and a single instruction can consume a meaningful share of your monthly allowance because one request triggers many underlying steps. As one observer put it, software of this kind is no longer priced like software. It's really priced like compute. And the second order effect is the part that really matters. When every execution carries a visible marginal cost, behavior changes. You hesitate, you ration, and that quietly undermines the core value proposition of an agent meant to act on your behalf. Under a flat model, you delegate freely. Under a metered one, you deliberate. Now, who is each product actually for? So Cowork suits you if you prioritize model quality, you operate outside an all Microsoft environment, and you value cost predictability. So you can assign work without monitoring the meter. Copilot suits you if your organization already operates within Microsoft 365, if you value the agent's presence over its peak capability, and if you're equipped to govern consumption-based spend. The candid assessment, though, is this. Most organizations won't deliberate. They'll adopt Copilot by default because it's bundled, and they'll introduce Cowork selectively for the work where a stronger model produces a material difference. Here is my broader read on where this all leads. You're not really selecting an agent. You're selecting whose ecosystem you rent your autonomy from. Because the more deeply an agent embeds into your workflow, the more it can do, and the more costly it becomes to leave. Capability and lock-in are functionally the same variable. And we have a precedent for this. It is the browser wars, with one revision though. The model is now the commodity and distribution is the browser itself. So the unresolved question is whether the superior model eventually prevails because quality compounds, or whether whoever controls the point of entry prevails regardless. That remains genuinely open. All right, so we've reached the end of this video, and I'll leave you with kind of what I'm seeing out there in the market. As I mentioned before, most companies are, especially large corporates, are in the Microsoft ecosystem, and they are very much open to trying Copilot and already are trying to incorporate Copilot into their everyday business systems. But the challenge with Copilot is it really over-indexed on that chat interface. Cowork, on the other hand, really came through with the agents that actually do things, that actually manipulate files and read information and actually perform tasks. So Cowork has really been a very attractive tool for so many, but with compliance and all of the hurdles that it takes to incorporate a new software solution in an organization, it's definitely put a damper on Cowork's ability to grow. So we will really see kind of what ends up prevailing. My view is that Copilot will continue to dominate and more people will continue to incorporate Anthropic's suite because Anthropic really had a major lead in building agentic capabilities for knowledge work, and I don't see that lead diminishing anytime soon. Now, if you stuck around till the end of this video, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.